You don't become successful by making one giant leap. You get there by taking small, consistent steps in the right direction. It's not the one big decision that changes your life. It's the 1,000 tiny ones you make every single day. Because the truth is, success doesn't shout. It whispers through your habits. Let me tell you something that will completely shift the way you look at growth. Most people are waiting for a big break, a big chance, a big opportunity. They think one day something magical will happen. Someone will discover them. Money will fall from the sky, or the perfect door will open. But life doesn't work like that. You don't stumble into success. You build it, one small habit at a time. If you study anyone who's ever achieved anything meaningful, you'll notice something interesting. Their results might look big, but their process was small, painfully small. A few minutes a day of reading, a few dollars saved, one phone call made, one promise kept, one morning they got up when they didn't feel like it. That's where greatness begins, in the quiet moments of discipline that nobody sees. The danger is, small habits are easy to do, but also easy not to do. You can skip reading today. You can eat junk food just this once. You can spend that extra hour scrolling. Nobody will notice. Not today. But give it a few months, a few years, and the invisible becomes visible. Success is simply the accumulation of small disciplines practiced every single day. So today, I want to walk you through a step-by-step training, how to turn small habits into big results. Because if you master the little things, you'll be shocked at how quickly the big things start to take care of themselves. We live in a world where people want everything fast. Fast success, fast results, fast recognition. We've been conditioned to believe that if something doesn't happen immediately, it's not working. And that's the trap. Because the most powerful things in life start quietly, almost invisibly. Growth doesn't announce itself. It hides beneath the surface while you're wondering if anything is happening at all. The truth is, success is built in silence long before it is celebrated in public. The power of small habits lies in what you cannot see, not what you can. The problem is that our eyes are trained for outcomes, not processes. We look for proof, we look for signs, we look for evidence that what we're doing is worth it. But real transformation doesn't begin when you see results. It begins when you decide to continue even when there are none. Think about a seed. When you plant it in the ground, for days, maybe weeks, nothing seems to happen. You water it, you care for it, you watch over it, but the soil remains still. It's easy to think nothing is working, but under that soil, a miracle is happening. Roots are forming, systems are strengthening, a foundation is being built. And when the time is right, the first green shoot appears. That's what small habits are doing for you. They're forming invisible roots. The work you do today may not show up tomorrow, but it's anchoring something powerful in your future. You're building strength, patience, discipline, the things that can't be seen but can always be felt. The danger is, because the results aren't immediate, most people stop before the roots take hold. They quit right before growth breaks through the surface. Let's be honest, it's hard to stay consistent when there's no applause. It's hard to keep reading, saving, working out, showing up when there's no visible return. But that's where the real battle is won. That's where you separate the dreamers from the doers. The dreamers wait for the feeling of progress. The doers create it. The dreamers want the proof first. The doers trust the process first. The dreamers need a sign. The doers become the sign. When you understand that invisible progress is still progress, you stop living by how things look and start living by how things grow. You see, every small decision you make sends a message to your mind about who you are becoming. When you read for 10 minutes, even if no one sees it, you're sending a message, I am a learner. When you exercise, even if you don't see results in the mirror, you're telling yourself, I take care of my body. When you keep your promises, even the small ones, you're saying, I can be trusted. That's what invisible progress does. It reshapes your identity. And identity always precedes results. People try to change outcomes without changing who they are, and that's why it never lasts. But when you begin to see yourself differently, your behavior naturally follows. It's not about forcing yourself to act. It's about training yourself to become. Most people underestimate the power of a single act repeated daily. They think, what difference can 5 minutes of writing make? What good is saving $5? What's the point of one walk around the block? But that's like asking what good one drop of water does to fill a bucket. None by itself, but everything when it's repeated. The greatest mistake you can make is to judge a habit by the size of its first result. Small disciplines look insignificant in the moment, but they are compounding in the background. And just like compound interest, they start slow, then they explode. One day you'll look back and realize that the book you wrote, the body you built, the wealth you accumulated, the confidence you developed, all of it started with small, almost invisible actions you took when it didn't seem to matter. The reason most people never experience big results is that they can't tolerate small beginnings. They want to leap from idea to impact, from effort to outcome, without understanding that time is the multiplier of all good habits. The question isn't, how fast can I see results? The question is, how long can I keep doing the right thing without seeing any? That's where your character is tested. The habits that don't pay off immediately are the ones that eventually pay the most. You can't harvest the same day you plant. Life has its seasons, and patience is the bridge between your habit and your harvest. The mind has a way of tricking you into stopping just when things are starting to work. It tells you it's not worth it. You're wasting time. You're not getting anywhere. But what the mind doesn't understand is that every repetition is a deposit. Every time you show up, you're investing in your future self. Those small investments may not look like much, but they're quietly building compound interest in your confidence, your energy, your self-respect. And when the day comes that the results finally show, it won't be because of that one last push. It'll be because of all the small, invisible pushes that came before it. So, don't measure your progress by what you can see today. Measure it by the fact that you're showing up today. The reward is not just in what you get. It's in who you're becoming. Every small act of discipline strengthens your ability to do what most people won't. And that's where the difference begins. Success doesn't come to those who do the most. It comes to those who do the small things the longest. The goal is to get to the point where doing the right thing becomes your normal, when it becomes harder to break your habits than to keep them. That's when you know growth has taken root. Invisible progress doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means the foundation is being built. And foundations are not meant to be seen. They're meant to be strong. Think about a skyscraper. The higher it's going to rise, the deeper they have to dig. And the digging part is messy, slow, and invisible. But once the structure begins to climb, no one sees the foundation anymore. Yet without it, the whole building collapses. Your habits are that foundation. You may not get applause for your early mornings, your study sessions, your sacrifices, your quiet acts of discipline. But one day, your results will make noise loud enough for all those silent days to make sense. And there's something beautiful about this invisible stage of growth. It humbles you. It teaches you patience, persistence, and faith. You learn to trust your effort more than your emotions. You learn that real change is not measured in days, but in decades. You learn that every step you take in the dark is preparing you for the light. And you realize that what makes small habits powerful isn't how big they seem. It's how deeply they shape the person who practices them. Because at the end of the day, the people who create extraordinary results aren't the ones who worked the hardest for a week. They're the ones who worked faithfully when nobody cared. They understood that small, consistent actions done with purpose always outlast bursts of effort fueled by emotion. That's why invisible progress isn't a weakness of growth. It's the proof of it. It's the hidden stage where greatness is being built brick by brick, quietly, patiently, faithfully. Every repetition, every small win, every unnoticed effort is part of a much bigger picture being painted by time itself. The fascinating thing about habits is that they never stay where they start. They grow, they spread, they multiply. One small change in your life can quietly influence everything else around it. You begin by improving one thing, and before you know it, your whole identity starts to shift. That's the beauty of the habit multiplier effect. You see, most people think habits are isolated. They believe exercising affects only their health, or reading affects only their knowledge. But that's not how it works. A single good habit is like lighting one candle in a dark room. Soon it's bright enough to help you see other things that need fixing. A disciplined morning routine starts influencing your focus, your patience, your attitude. You start to notice how one positive action makes the next one easier. Habits compound not just in results, but in influence. When you begin your day with one simple act of control, making your bed, going for a short walk, journaling your goals, you start your day with a win. That small victory sends a signal to your mind that you are in charge. It sets the tone. And once you've won the first few minutes, it's easier to win the next few hours. But when you start your day with chaos, your mind learns to expect chaos. This is why successful people focus on structure, not because they love routines, but because routines create freedom. They free your mind from decision fatigue, allowing your energy to flow toward creation, not confusion. And that is how one habit multiplies into a lifestyle. The multiplier effect also works because habits change your identity, and identity directs your actions. Let's say you decide to start reading every day for 10 minutes. In the beginning, you're just trying to learn something new. But after a few weeks, you no longer see yourself as someone who's trying to read. You see yourself as a reader. And once that identity takes root, it begins to spread into other areas. You start thinking like a learner. You begin to ask better questions. You become more curious. That curiosity improves your conversations, your relationships, even your confidence. That's the chain reaction of a single small habit. You can't change your life overnight, but you can change the direction of your life in one day by choosing one habit that leads to another. That's the real magic. The right habit doesn't just add something to your life, it multiplies it. For example, the habit of gratitude doesn't just make you feel better, it makes you see better. You start noticing opportunities you used to miss. You treat people differently. You respond to problems differently. Suddenly, life doesn't seem so heavy because your focus has shifted. That one habit of gratitude influences your mindset, your emotions, your relationships, and even your health. But this works both ways. Bad habits multiply too. Laziness doesn't stay in one corner of your life. If you're lazy at work, you start becoming lazy at home. If you procrastinate on small decisions, you start avoiding big ones. Negative thinking doesn't just affect your mood. It poisons your vision. That's why it's so important to take control early, because habits, good or bad, rarely stay small. They expand to fill the space you give them. You can't escape your habits, but you can choose them. The key to using the multiplier effect for growth is simplicity. Don't try to overhaul everything at once. When you try to change 10 habits, you usually end up changing none. Focus on one or two small, high-impact habits that have the power to influence others. It's like pushing the first domino. You don't need to knock them all down at once. Just start the motion. For instance, if you develop the habit of planning your day the night before, that one act can improve your time management, reduce your stress, and increase your productivity. From there, you might develop the habit of reflecting on your progress, which improves your clarity and confidence. Each habit opens the door to another. There's another principle to understand. Habits multiply when they're linked to meaning. If your habits feel like chores, they won't last. But when they are connected to purpose, they gain power. You don't stay consistent because you love discipline. You stay consistent because you love what discipline builds. When you tie your habit to something bigger than yourself, your family, your goals, your legacy, it becomes more than just an action. It becomes an act of commitment. A reason always sustains what routine begins. Habits also multiply when they are anchored to existing behaviors. Think of your current routine as a chain. Every link is a moment of opportunity. Instead of forcing a habit into your day, attach it to something you already do. If you make coffee every morning, use that time to write your goals or express gratitude. If you brush your teeth, use that moment to visualize your ideal day. If you walk to work, listen to something that feeds your mind. By stacking new habits on old ones, you create a rhythm that's hard to break. The stronger your anchor, the easier your consistency. Momentum is another force that multiplies habits. Once you start, staying in motion becomes easier than stopping. Success has inertia. The hardest part is not doing the work, it's starting the work. That's why small wins matter so much. Each small win builds confidence. Each repetition strengthens identity. Over time, you go from forcing discipline to flowing with discipline. What used to take willpower now happens automatically. That's the point of building habits, to make success your default setting. Habits multiply because they don't just exist in your schedule, they exist in your mind. When you start showing up consistently, your self-image starts catching up. You begin to expect more from yourself. You stop settling for mediocrity. You stop negotiating with your excuses. And when your standard rises, your environment responds. You start attracting people, opportunities, and energy that match your new level of consistency. The outside world begins to align with your inner growth. That's how small habits create big results. They shift the level of what you tolerate and what you attract. Now, the secret most people miss is that discipline is contagious. When you're consistent, you inspire others around you to become consistent. Your energy sets the tone. You might not even say a word, but people will feel your focus. They'll start adjusting to your pace. They'll see the standard you live by, and it will challenge them to rise. So not only do your habits multiply within you, they multiply around you. You become a living example of what's possible through discipline. And soon, your consistency doesn't just serve you. It serves your community, your family, your circle. That's how movements begin, not with loud motivation, but with quiet consistency. It's important to remember that small habits work best when combined with awareness. You have to pay attention to how your actions influence your energy. Some habits multiply your peace, while others multiply your pressure. The goal isn't to add more, but to refine. Replace habits that drain you with habits that drive you. Replace habits that distract you with habits that direct you. Every positive replacement creates a ripple effect that moves your life toward clarity. You don't need to change everything. You just need to change the direction of a few key habits and let momentum take care of the rest. And here's the wonderful thing about the habit multiplier effect. It doesn't demand perfection, only persistence. You don't need to do everything right every day. You just need to keep showing up more times than you give up. The magic is not in the intensity, but in the repetition. A few minutes a day of the right action compounds into a lifestyle of success. Because when you choose one habit with intention, nurture it with consistency, and stack it with purpose, it becomes a chain reaction of growth that never stops expanding. Consistency is the quiet builder of character. It's the invisible force that takes ordinary people and turns them into extraordinary leaders. The funny thing is, most people think consistency is about doing, about routines, schedules, or checklists. But real consistency is about becoming. It's about building an identity strong enough to keep showing up long after the excitement has faded. Anyone can start when they're motivated. It's who you are when motivation disappears that determines your future. Small habits practiced daily shape not just what you achieve, but who you are becoming in the process. The goal isn't to build habits for success. It's to become the kind of person success can trust. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you cast a vote for the person you're trying to be. When you wake up early after promising yourself you would, that's a vote for discipline. When you go to the gym, even though you're tired, that's a vote for strength. When you speak kindly instead of reacting in anger, that's a vote for maturity. You might not win every day, but every vote counts. Over time, these small votes accumulate, and they define your character. It's not about perfection, it's about direction. You are either building discipline or breaking it with every choice you make. Character is the foundation of all long-term success. You can't fake consistency. You can't pretend to be disciplined for long. Eventually, your habits reveal your truth. The person who practices consistency in small, unseen moments becomes unshakable when the storms of life arrive. That's why some people crumble under pressure while others rise. The difference isn't luck, it's preparation. Consistency builds inner strength long before the outer rewards appear. Every act of discipline is like laying one more brick in the wall of your character. The stronger that wall, the more pressure it can hold. You see, success isn't about intensity, it's about stability. A few intense days of effort can't replace steady days of discipline. Anyone can burn bright for a moment, but only those with character can stay lit for a lifetime. When you commit to consistency, you stop relying on feelings. Feelings change, but identity endures. When you reach the point where your habits are not something you do, but something you are, you no longer struggle to stay consistent. A reader doesn't have to remind himself to read. It's just what he does. A disciplined person doesn't debate whether to follow through. It's just who they are. Consistency turns discipline into identity, and identity into destiny. There's something deeply powerful about showing up for yourself when no one is watching. It builds trust with the most important person in your life, you. When you tell yourself you'll do something and then you follow through, you send a message to your subconscious that your word matters. You start believing in your own reliability. That belief is priceless because confidence is built through evidence, not affirmation. Every consistent act is evidence that you can be counted on. And the moment you begin to trust yourself fully, you stop living in hesitation. You stop seeking validation from others because you've already validated yourself through action. But building consistency isn't easy. There will be days when you don't feel like it, when you're tired, distracted, discouraged. That's where the real training begins. Consistency is not built on your best days, it's built on your worst ones. It's built in those moments when quitting feels easier, but you choose persistence instead. The days you don't want to show up are the days that shape your resilience, because it's in those small acts of persistence that character becomes unbreakable. You can't build a reputation on what you intend to do, only on what you consistently do. The interesting thing is that consistency not only creates discipline, it creates freedom. When your habits become automatic, you free your mind to focus on bigger goals. You're no longer wasting energy debating what to do. Your routine already decides for you. This is how the best performers operate. They don't rely on willpower, they rely on systems. They know that if they control their daily rhythm, their results will take care of themselves. The more consistent your habits, the more powerful your focus. You stop fighting battles with distraction because your structure already protects your purpose. Consistency also teaches you humility. When you commit to doing small things daily, you realize success isn't built on grand gestures. It's built on persistence in the ordinary. Greatness doesn't come from doing something once and getting lucky. It comes from doing something small over and over until the world can't ignore you anymore. The process humbles you because it reminds you that effort always comes before excellence. You learn to appreciate the climb, not just the view. You learn that mastery is built on repetition, not revelation. And here's something most people never understand. Consistency is emotional training. Every time you follow through when you don't feel like it, you teach your emotions who's in charge. You learn to act from vision, not from moods. Most people let their emotions make their schedule. The consistent person lets their schedule train their emotions. They know that discipline isn't about being robotic, it's about being reliable. It's not about ignoring how you feel. It's about not letting how you feel decide your future. When you reach that level of emotional control, you become unstoppable. Small habits are the perfect training ground for consistency because they're achievable. You don't need to overhaul your entire life to build character. You just need to keep small promises every day. Write for 10 minutes, exercise for 15, plan your day before you sleep. Those little actions might seem insignificant, but each one is a muscle repetition for your willpower. You're strengthening your ability to stay focused, patient, and committed. And once consistency becomes part of your nature in small areas, it automatically expands into bigger ones. The person who is consistent in small things can be trusted with great things. Consistency is also the antidote to doubt. When you're unsure of your future, just keep doing the next right thing today. Every consistent step builds clarity. You might not see the whole path, but faithfulness to your habits will eventually reveal it. The problem is, people often stop because they can't see results. But consistency doesn't promise immediate change. It promises inevitable change. The law of cause and effect doesn't expire. What you do daily must eventually show up. You can't plant discipline and harvest failure. The seeds you plant will always produce their kind. It just takes time. The deeper truth is that consistency transforms you from the inside out. It rewires your brain to prefer progress over procrastination, action over avoidance, discipline over doubt. Over time, it becomes less about effort and more about identity. You no longer have to force yourself to act. You've become the kind of person who acts naturally. You stop chasing motivation because you realize the real power is in momentum. Once you're in motion, everything else begins to align. The mind, the body, the spirit all start working in harmony because they've been trained by your consistency. And perhaps the most beautiful part of it all is that consistency breeds peace. When you live with discipline, you live without regret. You stop questioning what could have been because you're too busy building what will be. There's a quiet satisfaction in knowing that you're doing your part every single day, even when no one notices. You start finding fulfillment not in the destination, but in the routine itself. That's when discipline turns into joy, because when you live with consistency, you're no longer chasing results. You're living as the result.